unaccompanied children only make up 20% of those apprehended crossing the border illegally. And as the brave men and women of our Border Patrol are pulled away from their law enforcement duties to give humanitarian aid, drug cartels, human traffickers, individual criminals are exploiting this tragedy for their own criminal opportunities.
All right, folks. Of course, Governor Perry telling a very horrific story, and we can't overlook what's going on at the border because of what's going on overseas and elsewhere. We just have to not let that slip out of our focus, and we're not going to let it happen. Chris Cabrera, Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council in Texas, is with us. Hello, Chris.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. Let me ask you, you know, earlier we talked about James O'Keefe and how he got across the border dressed as Osama bin Laden. You know, you might think that that's the most bizarre thing. But before we get to all that, I want to ask you about what the governor said. How many of our Border Patrol agents are being pulled off their law enforcement duties for humanitarian purposes dealing with these unaccompanied kids?
I would say roughly at least 40 to 50% regularly pulled off their duties. At times, the number grows depending on what size of a group's coming across. We have to divert our resources to handle these groups.
And as a result, of course, more people could slip across the border. What are some of the humanitarian duties that the governor was referring to and you could vouch for? What are you guys being asked to do?
Well, you know, first, you know, once we catch a group, obviously you have to have enough people to transport them in, get them in safely. We have anything from, you know, feeding them, obviously housing them. We have a detention space now that they just opened up where it requires a lot of agents. You have to have so many agents per child that's in your custody. Anything that comes along with, you know, for lack of a better word, babysitting.
Wow. All right. Now, let me ask you about it. I saw a report, I think I might have been on CNN, it was somewhere yesterday, about the government allows border agents to stop Americans 100 miles in from any point of entry to the country. In other words, from the Atlantic Ocean here in New York City, and 100 miles in, which encompasses New Jersey and almost all of New York, and all around the country. You draw a perimeter around the country. And then I saw where in certain towns, 100 miles off the border in Arizona, for instance, is this one little town, and the Border Patrol and the feds have, you know, a setup where they stop cars and make you produce your license. They ask you where you're going, and these are people who are going to work, living in their town 100 miles or so from the border. Is that something that's preoccupying and interfering with the actual Border Patrol's job of patrolling the border, do you believe? Do I have this story correct?
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, there are some areas away from the border, certain choke points where, you know, vehicles will travel, and we have to have checkpoints set up there just for the fact that even though people are coming through on a daily basis, going to work or school or whatever, we also have, that's where the 18-wheelers or the trucks come through full of drugs, full of people, that kind of stuff. So we do patrol inland as well, but that's not our main function is the border.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear, certainly. Talk about, is this thing, you know, it's been out of the news for a while, these kids, and but as the governor alluded to in that soundbite we heard at the beginning, the kids are just 20% of the people who come across illegally. And now, you know, now we have concerns, of course, with ISIS sending people over. They say they have passports or visas, so that's a whole nother ballgame from you guys. But things are getting bad, worse, or staying the same. Where are we? Because, like I said, even this children's crisis has been out of the focus of the media for about 2 weeks now.
Yeah, you know, the children have died down somewhat. It hasn't stopped completely. We expect it to pick back up. But if you're looking at 20% of what's apprehended is unaccompanied children, which, you know, I have no reason to doubt that number. If you look at the fact that 30% of what crosses into the country, 30 to 35%, that's our apprehension rate. So even though that 20% seems like a relatively small number, if you compare that against that 70% is getting away from us completely, that's where people need to be concerned.
Let's talk about the criminals and the gang members specifically. You know, the media tries to poo-poo this, even with the health crisis posed by some of these kids, by saying, "Oh, that's what they said about the Jews, criminals, and sickness, and that's what they said about the Irish, and now they're saying it about these people." You know, but the gang issue. Let's focus on that before we get to other criminals. Let me ask you, how big an issue and problem are these gang members or people who get to be recruited as gang members coming across the border illegally?
It is a big problem. You know, I know of a handful that have come into the country between the age of 15 and 17, turned themselves in, and they were released to family up in the Maryland, D.C. area. I think one of them even went to Hawaii. And these kids self-admitted to murder, to robbery, to violent tendencies. And since they had no criminal record here in the United States, they were released into the country. Now, obviously, they're gonna, link up with whoever, whether they know people here or they start their own thing or what. But these are violent gang members from their country, MS-13, MS-18, which those guys are a pretty rowdy bunch.
So they could admit to you guys or whoever processes them at the border that they're gang members, that they murdered, whatever, and they don't get sent back. They're allowed in if they have family members here, and they get sent to those family members.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, we have seen that some of these people that have admitted to these things are reunited with their family here in the United States.
Now, what about the revolving door, Chris? For instance, the off-duty Border Patrol agent who was killed, shot and killed a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, and by illegals, one of whom at least has been captured and sent back, and comes back and sent back and comes back. Talk about the revolving door and what kind of frustration does that place on you and your fellow Border Patrol members when you see the people you apprehend and send back come right back?
It is very frustrating, especially for the fact that he did kill one of our own. However, some of these people that have been deported, they come back, and we do have police officers that have been murdered. I know quite a few, and a lot of illegal immigrant murders happen in the city of Houston, and it's a shame. One of these guys that was caught 4 times, 3 of those times he was assessed a $10 fine and sent back to Mexico. The 4th time they assessed him a $100 fine, sent him back to Mexico, and now he takes a big step and kills one of our agents. And if these laws that are on the books were enforced, we wouldn't have this problem. If we don't enforce what we have on the books, then what good are the laws in the first place?
So that's another issue, Chris, as we wind down here in a few minutes. Talking about the Congress has to act. We need comprehensive immigration reform. The president wants more money. He wants more, judges at the border, et cetera. But it's like we have 20,000 gun laws in this country. And every time there's a shooting, a tragic shooting, the call goes out from Washington, we need more gun laws. But then it turns out they're not enforcing the ones that are in existence. Are you of the opinion, and your group, National Border Patrol Council, do you believe that it would go a long way in alleviating these problems, maybe not solving them completely, but helping them, certainly, if the laws that are on the books were enforced and that they're not being enforced? Is that accurate?
That is 100% accurate. If our agents were allowed to do their jobs, not just Border Patrol agents, ICE agents, if our guys are allowed to work and do our jobs the way it's designed to be worked, then we can make a really big dent in the issues that we're having here. And let's keep in mind, you can enforce all the gun laws on the books that you want, but usually the criminals don't follow those laws to begin with. That's why they're criminals.
No, absolutely. You're 100% right. Hey, Chris, nice talking to you, sir. Keep up the good work, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you for having me. Have a good day.
You too. Chris Cabrera, ladies and gentlemen, Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council in the great state of Texas. And it is beyond lunacy what's going on. It is beyond sickness what's going on. Again, when someone of his caliber tells us that there are gang members, admitted gang members, to know that this kid who's joining the family in Maryland was a murderer back in Mexico? a gang member back in Mexico? And what are the odds that they're going to hook up with a gang, start a gang, form a gang, whatever, up in Maryland? And not being able to enforce the laws, and being pulled off duty for humanitarian jobs and tasks. All of these things are nuts. Do you not see that? Of course you do. All right, folks, what can I tell you? I don't know what to tell you. Last week, I'll tell you this, we asked you to vote on whether or not President Obama should be impeached. Today, the results are in. 67%, two-thirds of you said yes, Obama should be impeached. 32% of you said no. I'm sure we'll have more polls. Thanks for participating. Gimme 5 is next.